We've got to reach those ridiculous, crazy black men that did vote for Trump.
So let me get this straight. If I vote for a party that can't define what a woman is, I'm no longer ridiculous or crazy. If I vote for a party that wants boys in my daughter's sports and restrooms, I'm no longer ridiculous or crazy. If I vote for a party that thinks they can pander to me using kente cloths and hot sauce, I'm no longer crazy. If I vote for a party that has done nothing but destroy my community for the last 60 years and open the borders in order to replace my vote and destroy my community further, I'm no longer crazy. If I vote for the party that wanted to keep me from voting, wanted to keep Jim Crow, wanted to keep slavery, the party of the Klan, I'm no longer crazy. And I'm no longer crazy or ridiculous if I vote for the candidate who's been in the office as vice president for the last 3.5 years and admitted to having a large part in pushing the harmful policies that have hurt my country, who can't answer basic questions and is quite possibly the worst candidate in American history, says she's going to bring change while at the same time admitting there's nothing she'd change about the last 3.5 years, and made us the laughing stock of the world. And you think I'm the crazy one. I think it's crazy you think I should vote for a candidate based on skin color rather than how their policies will affect my life. It's pretty sick.
Man, I gotta tell you, I love seeing stuff like this. The Harris-Walz campaign is sinking. It is sinking by the minute every single day, and they have no idea how to save themselves. They are at the point where they are running a Scamala campaign. They're talking about misinformation, and that is all they are putting out.
So now Kamala Harris and the Democrats, they got a new tactic. They got a new strategy. They found that everything else that they're doing is not working. So opposed to trying to run a fair campaign, what they're doing now is using this word called misinformation. So they're trying to fearmonger us once again and say that everything that Donald Trump's saying is misinformation.
Yet, church, there are some who are not acting in the spirit of community. And I am speaking of those who have been literally not telling the truth, lying about people who are working hard to help folks in need, spreading disinformation.
They've already started with the misinformation and the lies.
And some Democrats are starting to believe the disinformation too. Have you noticed how sharply the polls have shifted in Trump's favor over the last couple weeks? With these claims that Trump is surging with black and Latino voters and leading in every single swing state, according to secret internal polls, despite all the Hitler talk. Yes, this race will be far too close. Because unfortunately, we do have a fascist groundswell in parts of this country, mainly among white men, let's be clear, but in small pockets among black and brown men too. This happens to be a global phenomenon as women become more economically independent and seek positions of power.
I'm going to tell you, Madam Vice President, what misinformation is. Misinformation is trying to convince the American people that there are no criminals crossing the border illegally without documentation. That's misinformation. Misinformation is trying to tell the American people that there are no abortions that are performed in the 8th and 9th month across the United States of America, beside those that are for an emergency reason to save the life of the mother. That's misinformation. Misinformation is trying to convince us that you wrote a book, Smart on Crime, without plagiarizing. That's misinformation. Misinformation, that's trying to tell us that Venezuelan gangs are not affecting American cities. That's misinformation. Misinformation, Madam Vice President, is trying to convince the American people that the cost of groceries has risen due to price gouging and not due to inflation. That is misinformation. Misinformation is trying to tell us that during the period that Joe Biden was running for office, was running in this election campaign, that he was healthy and he was just vibrant and he was just as wise as a tat. That's misinformation. When we all knew what our eyes saw, and you knew that too, Madam Vice President. Misinformation is trying to convince us that a grown human being that was born with male parts is somehow not a male anymore. That's misinformation. Misinformation is telling us that we live in a democracy, but we are afraid to vote for someone simply because they are a woman. That is misinformation. So now You tell me which party is the party of misinformation.
The Democrat Party is the party of misinformation. And they'll tell you, we are the party of joy. We're moving forward. We're turning the page. And all they are doing is spreading falsehoods every single time they open their mouth. They don't like black men all of a sudden because black men don't support Kamala Harris. They don't like Latinos because Latinos don't support Kamala Harris. Why would they support her? She has done nothing for almost 4 years as VP, and she has zero accomplishments. And they'll go on all their mainstream media shows, and they'll tell you how wonderful it is. And Kamala Harris, out of her own mouth, will say, I'm going to fix it on day one. Day one of what? She's been there for 4 years.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Yeah.
Look, you all know it. We can't have 4 more years of this. We won't have 4 more years of it. We won't.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
Are they better off now than they were 4 years ago?
Making life more affordable for people. What are 1 or 2 specific things you have in mind for that?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
I grew up in a middle-class family. The American dream right now is really elusive.
The American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive.
The American dream is elusive. It's just actually not attainable.
You know, home ownership for too many people in our country now is elusive. You know, gone is the day of everyone thinking they could actually live the American dream.
You know, we grew up, our parents, where they had the ability to somehow believe the American dream was attainable.
Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know what I know. Prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high. You know it and I know it.
Prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high. You know it and I know it.
I know prices are too high still. You know prices are too high still. And we have to deal with it.
And of course, she went on the show I Love to Hate. Sonny Hostin asked her, what would you have done different than President Biden? Harris' answer, I wouldn't have done anything different. Nothing comes to mind. I've been involved in just about everything that has been done in the Biden-Harris administration. But again, she's going to fix everything on day one. Also, Joy Reid is having a complete Trump derangement syndrome meltdown because even she sees Democrats are not backing Kamala Harris. They have had it with her. They know she's not the proper candidate. They know she's only in that position so she can be controlled in the White House just like Joe Biden was. And Charlemagne the God brought up a very, very important thing. When Kamala Harris was a DA and then Attorney General in California, she fought behind the scenes to make sure inmates could get surgeries changing them from a man to a woman or a woman to a man on the California's tax-paying dime. Yes, that's right. She fought for it and she got it done. Why on God's green earth are the tax-paying citizens of this country paying for transgender surgeries? That is all Kamala Harris supports. She supports the they-thems and the he-hers. She doesn't support the average American citizen, nor does Tim Walz. He is one of the biggest frauds we've ever seen, and we know about the stolen valor of the military. And right now, as I'm speaking to you, there have been stories coming out about a student he had when he was a teacher and a coach. That student is coming forward and saying some things that I'm pretty sure the Harris-Walz campaign doesn't want to hear. I don't have much information on that right now, so I'm not going to speak of it, but it's out online if you choose to look for it yourself. This campaign is a fraud. It was a fraud from day one. They preach and preach and preach democracy. What the Democrats did to Democratic voters is tell them democracy is dead in our eyes. We are telling you who you are going to vote for, who your candidate is going to be, and you will support it. And that has failed. Kamala Harris has failed across the board. Every time she talks, it's fresh word salads. Even the liberal media is telling you that Kamala Harris is not in a position to lead this country. She is not qualified. She has failed up her entire career. People who support her are frauds because they all support the transgender movement and the abortion issue and what have you. I never talk about the abortion issue because I choose not to put what I believe out there. But that's all they use. Abortion, transgender, LGBTQ, blacks, Latinos, and so on. And we have seen over and over again, as recently as just a few days ago, when Barack Obama went and he said he wanted to talk to the brothers. He said, I'm a brother. I want to talk to the brothers. And how dare you not support a black female? So in the Democrats' Party's eyes, it's nothing to do with Kamala's qualifications to be president because, again, she is not qualified. These Democrats want her to receive votes because she's a woman and she's black. Well, we could say she's black, but sometimes she has a Latino accent, sometimes she has a Jamaican accent, sometimes she talks normal. No one really knows what she is. She doesn't even know who she really is. Every time she talks to a certain group of people, she wants to pretend she knows them. She grew up near them, like them. And it's all about, I was raised as a middle-class kid. And she admits, prices are high. What is she going to do about it? She's going to do nothing. She had just about 4 years to change it, and she did nothing. But all of a sudden, she wants us to believe that she is the almighty savior of this country. Again, they are running a misinformation fraud campaign. They bash Trump when Donald Trump is in it for one reason, to save this country from the failures of the Democrats year after year after year. Because we all know Barack Obama was in for 8 years. Then Hillary was going to pick up where Barack left off, but Donald Trump threw a stick in her spokes. And to this day, she still can't believe that she lost. She's still making the media rounds, even while Willie Clinton's out there now. And he made a point of saying, if the Biden-Harris border policy was what it should have been, the college student Laken Riley would not have been killed by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. They all know it's a fraud. She is a fake, and God forbid she gets elected, it's a wrap, it's over. If you think you are suffering now, if Kamala Harris gets elected in November, it's over for all of us. The elite Democrats need to be taught a lesson. You cannot continue to screw over the hard-working American people for your own personal and financial gain. The woman's a fraud. Tim Walz is a fraud. Donald Trump needs to be elected in November to save us from the Democrat mess that we're in today.